What's doing, everybody? Welcome to the channel. Appreciate you tuning in. Please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Everybody else, welcome back to my return viewers. Appreciate you. And today we're going to talk about friendship, about a unique friendship. I think when we're young, we have a lot of friends, right? If you're young, you're in your teenage years or you're in your 20s, even your 30s. You have this big circle of friends. You know, you go out, you hang out with people, you go to the club with people, or you go on vacation with people, and you do all these things with your friends, right? But how many of them? And as you get older, that circle gets smaller and smaller. For most people, I would say the majority of people, when you get into your 40s, when you get into your 50s and your 60s, the next thing you know, the circle becomes very small. Why is that? I think there's a lot of reasons for that. I think a lot of people that are watching this video who are in their 40s or 50s or in their 30s can relate to that. You may be young and you have a big circle of friends. You may be older and your circle gets smaller. There's still some people that are getting up there in age that have big circles of friends, but it's not the majority. It's the minority, you know. And why is that, you know? And I think it's because as we get older, I think one of the reasons is as we get older, we are more confident within ourselves. We realize that we don't need other people as much. We realize that we can take care of ourselves more. But I think the main reason is that when you get older, you have no time for the bullshit. You have no time for the fake friends, right? See, when you're younger, you don't realize that that big circle of friends, that many of them may not be truly what you consider a friend. Like if you look at the Webster's dictionary for the definition of friendship, right? Let me tell you, let me read you exactly what this says for the Webster's dictionary, right? It says, according to Webster's dictionary, friendship is defined as the state of being friends or the quality or state of being friendly, a mutual affection and liking, trust and support, shared experiences. I won't even continue. Webster's dictionary doesn't know what the hell they're talking about, right? If you look inside of the Bible, like the King James Bible, John chapter 15, verse 9, greater love hath no man than this, than a man that will lay down his life for his friends. That's the definition of friendship. A man who will lay down his life for his friends. A friend who will open up the door to his home when you have no place to go. A friend who will drive you across the country if you need to get across the country. A friend is someone who is going to be there for you no matter what. No matter what. In life and in death. That's the way I see true friendship. That's the way I view friendship. And I viewed friendship like that since I was a young kid. I don't know why, but that's the way I've always viewed friendship, as I will do anything in the world for my friends. And that it is extremely hard to find in return. It's very hard to find in return. And I found it almost impossible for me to find the friend that I will be to someone else. And I believe there's many people out there that do believe in friendship. There's groups of them out there, and they will have a hard time finding it in return as well. And the reason I'm discussing this is because I am going to talk about a unique friendship that I have with my friend Rick. And you can you can see Rick right there in the picture. Let me show you a picture of Rick. That is the day that I was walking out of prison. Rick was standing there and waiting for me to walk out the doors, along with several other people. My friend Jimmy was there, as you see, my friend Jimmy, and a couple of people were there waiting for me. But this is about Rick, who was there waiting for me. And I'm going to talk about the unique story, that the unique friendship that Rick and I have. Rick was my seventh grade teacher. And in seventh grade, after I had been abused sexually and my grades started falling and I started to rebel and get into trouble, I was basically kicked out of regular classes. And Rick was a school teacher and he was forming a class for kids that were having a hard time, and figured he can have a smaller structured class where he would be able to work more directly with kids who are having a harder time in the regular day-to-day school classrooms. And when I met Rick and went into his class, I would say that I felt love in that classroom. He wasn't just a school teacher. He I believe he loved us. The 10 kids that were in that class, the 12 kids that were in that class, many of them who I still see today. Rick basically made us throw our books in the garbage, and he would talk to us about life. He would take us out of the classroom and bring us up to the boardwalk, and we would talk about life. He would order a pizza into the classroom, and we would sit down and talk. And of course, he would give us our education as well. But he had a unique way of teaching us, of bonding with us, of caring for us, of showing us love. And in Rick's class, I excelled. I did great on all my testing, on my behavior improved. Um, it was a very unique experience. And when I went into the eighth grade the next year, I had Rick again as a teacher because he started teaching eighth grade the following year, and I did great with him under there as well. Many of us did, and it was after that, after eighth grade, when I couldn't have Rick as a teacher anymore, that everything went downhill, that everything spiraled out of control because Rick was no longer there to guide me. And he was that meaningful of a teacher. He kept us that grounded. He sincerely cared and didn't just see his job as a teacher, but he saw us as his children. And because I live in a small town, after that, I would bump into Rick here and there throughout town. We'd see one another here and there, and it was always great to see him. Bump into him on the beach, bump into him on the boardwalk, bump into him food shopping. He had a great relationship with my mom. He knew all the parents very well, and it was just a special man. And I would end up going to prison after my life of trouble. I would end up going into prison. And one day my mother was having a garage sale many years later. This is 10 years after Rick was my teacher, 10 years later. My mother was having a garage sale in front of the house, a yard sale. And Rick had stopped by, and him and my mother started talking, big hug, big kiss. And he says, "Wow, man, how's Fish doing? Whatever happened to Joey? Where is he?" And my mother told him, "Ricky's in prison." You know, Unfortunately, he went to prison for taking someone's life. And the next thing you know, I get a letter from Rick while I'm incarcerated. And it was a handwritten letter, and it was 10 pages long. And he talked about how much he loved me. And he talked about how special I was. And he talked about how meaningful to him I was. And he talked about being there for me when I get out. And he talked about being there for me while I was still in. And it was one of the most powerful and unique and meaningful letters that I ever received from my seventh and eighth grade school teacher while I was up in prison. And of course, I wrote him back right away. And this started a correspondence that would transpire for a while, for a long time. And fast forward, it was a lot of inspirational letters. Nothing but inspiration, nothing but motivation, nothing but praise. He would praise me and talk about how unique I was and how special I was. And he understood why I made mistakes, and he knew a lot about my life, and he knew that I had a big heart, and he knew I was better than the position that I ended up in. And he knew that I was going to do something with myself. He knew that I was going to make it. These were the words in the letters I'd received from him. And the day I walked out of incarceration, he was right there. And you see, he's a big guy, you know. He wrapped his arms around me and kissed me on the face and gave me a big, huge hug, you know, and stuck an envelope in my pocket to take care of me. And he said, whatever you need, I'm here. You know, you pick up the phone and you call me. You come over to my house and come see my wife and come see my children and my grandchildren. And I would go over to his house many times, you know. And sometimes I'd just go by his house and start beeping on, "Hey, Rick!" And his wife would come out. I say, "Hey, where's Rick?" She said, "Oh, Joey's here, Rick, Joey's here." And he'd come out on the porch, big smile on his face always, you know, and we'd go get pizza together. He loves it. "Let's meet at the pizza place. Let's get some pizza." You know, and we always talk about what I'm doing, and his belief in me is more belief than I ever had in myself. You know, that's I say a problem with Rick. He believes I can go to the moon, and he honestly believes it. You know, and he's so sincere. And so this relationship has taken place, you know, for a year after I'm home, for a year and a half after I'm home, and we go out for pizza one day, and he says to me, "Listen, Joey," he says, I got the big C." You know, he told me that he had cancer. And man, boy, it hit me like a brick. And so I said, what's going on? What do you have to do?" And he says, "I'm going into New York City." He says, a couple of times a week. He said, "for the treatments in the city, you know." And I said, "Well, I'm taking you. I'm going to drive you there. Every time you have to go, I'm picking you up in the morning at your house, and I'm going to drive you into the city, and I'm going to wait with you when you go to your treatments." And that's what we did. And I would pick him up and drive him into Manhattan and go to the hospital there and wait for him to get his treatments and then drive him home, because you know it takes a lot out of you. And we would do this back and forth for months, and he beat that thing, man. He beat that thing. He is cancer free. He is doing awesome for years now, and he's living a great life. And we still talk, and we still bump into each other. I bumped into him the other day at Ace Hardware, you know, and he just sees me and he lights up. And we sat in the parking lot and had lunch and talk. And you know, he says, "Listen, I want you to do something for me." This was a few years back. And at this point, he wasn't a teacher anymore. He was now the director of a very big college, one of the big kahunas in a big college. And he says, "I want you to come into the college." He says, "and I have a group," he says, "a whole auditorium full of school teachers." He said, "They are already," he says, "out in the world teaching." He said, "but they are still in school going for their master's degrees." He says, "and I would like for you to stand on stage," he says, "and tell your story." He says, "and about what you went through, why you went through it, how you overcame it." He said, "but more so," he said, "I want you to explain to these teachers," he said, "our relationship." He said, "I want them to comprehend that they are more than just teachers." He said that they are building lifelong friendships, lifelong relationships with the pupils that they are educating, to not just see them as students, but to see them as individuals that you are impacting for life, and that you have the ability to impact for life. And I got up on that stage and I explained the relationship between myself and my seventh and eighth grade teacher, Rick, that took us through the classroom, that took us through the prison system, that took us through the chemotherapy and radiation ward, that took us to each other's living rooms. I just went and pressure washed his house, his backyard. I have the pressure washer. I said, I'll come take care of it. This was a unique relationship that all started from a school teacher, you know? And how could I thank him enough for believing in me, for being there for me? Just a very, very special individual. I have now gone into the college about 5 or 6 different times to this specific college, and I've addressed people with doctorate's degrees. I've addressed professors. I've addressed the student body. And I've addressed all of them together with an entire auditorium full to explain that greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. Special person. Hard to find people like that in today's world. Definitely is. It's a short story about me and my friend Rick. I'll see you guys later.